Behind the walls of New Mexico's prisons lies a brutal underworld ruled by violence, loyalty, and fear. These are the most dangerous prison gangs in the state, from the ruthless Texas Syndicate to the deadly Sureños and Barrio Azteca. Their influence extends far beyond prison gates, driving drug trafficking, assaults, and murder. Inmates are forced to choose sides or face the consequences. With strict codes and deadly rivalries, these gangs control the flow of power inside some of New Mexico's most notorious correctional facilities. This is a hidden war few see, but its impact is impossible to ignore. Number 7. The Texas Syndicate. Hidden beneath the vast deserts and rugged mountains of New Mexico lies a shadowy presence few residents ever see, but its influence is deeply felt. This is the story of the Texas Syndicate, a violent prison gang born in the chaos of the 1970s, whose reach has extended far beyond its Texas roots and into the heart of New Mexico. Originally formed by Mexican-American inmates in California's Folsom Prison, the Texas Syndicate emerged as a response to racial violence and abuse from other gangs. As members were transferred back to Texas, the gang flourished in the Lone Star State's prison system. But over time, the Syndicate's ambitions grew. They didn't just want to survive, they wanted to dominate. By the 1990s, the Texas Syndicate began expanding its influence beyond Texas. One key region in their crosshairs, New Mexico. With its growing prison population, strategic drug trafficking routes, and limited gang oversight, New Mexico offered the perfect opportunity for expansion. Inside New Mexico's correctional facilities, Syndicate members worked to establish a foothold. They recruited new inmates, primarily Hispanic males, enforcing strict codes of loyalty and discipline. Defection was not an option. Betrayal meant death. The gang operated under a militaristic structure, with orders passed down from high-ranking members often known as carnales. Their primary goal? Control. Control over the prison drug trade, extortion, and protection rackets. But it didn't stop at the prison gates. Outside, the Texas Syndicate coordinated with street-level dealers and other criminal networks. They trafficked methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine through New Mexico's highways, key corridors in the Southwest drug pipeline. Towns like Las Cruces, Albuquerque, and smaller border communities saw a rise in drug-related violence, much of it tied to syndicate operations. Law enforcement in New Mexico has struggled to contain the threat. The syndicate operates with secrecy and brutal efficiency. Intelligence gathered from inmate informants and intercepted communications has revealed how deep their roots run. Hit lists, smuggled contraband, coordinated assaults. These are not just isolated incidents. They are part of a calculated strategy. What sets the Texas Syndicate apart from other gangs is its strict internal discipline. Unlike loosely organized street gangs, the Syndicate punishes its own with extreme measures. Their motto: once in, never out. In recent years, New Mexico officials have increased efforts to disrupt the gang's operations. Intelligence units, gang task forces, and federal partnerships have led to indictments and convictions. But even behind bars, the Syndicate's influence remains strong. The story of the Texas Syndicate in New Mexico is a stark reminder of how prison gangs evolve, and how their power often extends far beyond the walls meant to contain them. This is not just a tale of crime, it's a battle for control in the shadows of New Mexico. Number 6. The 505 2nd Street Gang. In the heart of Albuquerque, where old railroad tracks meet concrete streets, a name rings out in fear and loyalty: the 505 2nd Street Gang. Also known simply as the 505 Gang, they are a local force with deep roots in New Mexico's gang culture, known for their violence, their pride, and their grip on the streets. The 505 Gang was born in the urban streets of Albuquerque's inner city, particularly along 2nd Street, which runs parallel to the tracks that divide the city. It's a street that's seen poverty, struggle, and survival. And for many, that struggle created the 505 Gang. Unlike national organizations like the Bloods, Crips, or Aryan Brotherhood, the 505 Gang is homegrown, a street-level gang that has evolved into a dangerous criminal network. They represent Albuquerque pride, but they carry that pride through guns, drugs, and fear. Their name, 505, is more than just an area code. It's a symbol of territory, identity, and resistance. Members are fiercely loyal to their city, their block, and their brothers. Disrespect is met with violence, and retaliation is a rule, not an option. Over the years, the 505 Gang has been linked to drug trafficking, weapons possession, home invasions, armed robberies, and drive-by shootings. They have clashed violently with rival gangs in Albuquerque, especially those tied to northern New Mexico and those affiliated with larger national organizations. Inside New Mexico's prisons, the 505 Gang has maintained its identity, often forming alliances with Hispanic groups and larger prison gangs to survive. They're not as structured as the Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico or the Sureños, but they operate with a shared code: respect, revenge, and brotherhood. Their reach doesn't end at the prison gate. 505 members returning to the streets often continue their criminal enterprises, dealing meth, stealing firearms, and recruiting younger members from broken neighborhoods. In some communities, the gang is a cycle passed down from generation to generation, a rite of passage in the absence of hope. Law enforcement continues to battle the 505 Gang with enhanced patrols, federal indictments, and gang task forces. But every time a leader is taken down, another rises up, often younger, more reckless, and just as dangerous. They were born on the blocks of 2nd Street, raised by the streets, feared in prison, and still a growing threat in the neighborhoods of Albuquerque. The 505 Gang is more than a number. It's a warning. Number 5. The Los Padilas Gang in New Mexico. In the dusty streets of Albuquerque's South Valley, a name echoes with fear, loyalty, and violence: Los Padilas. More than just a street gang, they are a homegrown force entrenched in the culture, crime, and conflicts of New Mexico. This is the story of Los Padilas, a gang born in the neighborhood, raised in prison, and feared across the state. Named after the Padilla neighborhood in southwest Albuquerque, Los Padilas emerged in the 1980s and 1990s as a response to poverty, marginalization, and territorial pride. What started as a group of local youth looking for identity and protection would quickly spiral into a violent and deeply rooted gang. The gang built its reputation on violence and loyalty. From assaults and drive-by shootings to armed robbery and drug trafficking, Los Padilas became a major player in Albuquerque's gang scene, especially in the South Valley, a region plagued by generational poverty and limited opportunity. But their influence didn't stop at the city limits. Over the years, members of Los Padilas were arrested and sent to state and federal prisons, where they quickly adapted to the inmate power structure. Inside, they allied with larger Hispanic prison gangs like the Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico and the Sureños, gaining protection and expanding their criminal reach. In prison, Los Padilas members took on new roles, becoming drug couriers, enforcers, and recruiters. They helped smuggle narcotics, ran extortion schemes, and participated in violent hits both inside the walls and outside on the streets. Their growing influence made them a priority for law enforcement task forces, who began connecting Los Padilas to a wider network of organized crime in New Mexico. By the 2010s, the gang's involvement in methamphetamine distribution, gun trafficking, and violent crime had drawn federal attention. Several members were indicted under conspiracy and drug trafficking charges, and local police ramped up gang suppression units in the South Valley. Still, Los Padilas survives. Why? Because for many young people in their neighborhood, the gang is family, protection, and a way out of poverty. even if it means walking into a life of crime. In a state already plagued by drug wars and prison gang rivalries, Los Padilas represents a unique threat, a local gang with deep community roots and ties to powerful prison organizations. They were born on Albuquerque's streets, forged in New Mexico's prisons, and in the war for control, loyalty, and legacy. Los Padilas will do whatever it takes to survive. Number 4. The Bario Azteca Gang. Born in the borderlands between Texas and Mexico, forged by prison violence and cartel bloodshed. This is the story of Bario Azteca, one of the most dangerous and ruthless prison gangs operating in the Southwest. Their influence stretches across borders and into the heart of New Mexico. The Bario Azteca Gang, or BA, was formed in the late 1980s inside Texas prisons by Hispanic inmates seeking protection. But protection quickly turned to power, violent, organized, and lethal. With strong roots in El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, the gang grew into a cross-border criminal network. Over time, their operations expanded into New Mexico, where they now maintain a dangerous and growing presence. Unlike many street gangs, Bario Azteca is structured like a military organization, with ranks, orders, and discipline. Inside New Mexico prisons, they function as shock troops and drug enforcers, using violence to control territory, silence rivals, and smuggle contraband. Their weapon of choice? Fear. Inmates affiliated with BA follow a strict code: loyalty, obedience, and respect. Disloyalty is met with deadly consequences. But it's not just prison turf they're fighting for. Bario Azteca is deeply connected to Mexican drug cartels, especially the Juarez cartel, acting as their enforcers on both sides of the border. In New Mexico, BA operates in both state and federal prisons, as well as on the streets, particularly in southern cities like Las Cruces, Sunland Park, and Deming. There, they're involved in meth and heroin distribution, extortion, human trafficking, and contract killings. Their reach is so dangerous that in 2010, U.S. officials accused BA members of participating in the assassination of 3 people connected to the U.S. consulate in Juarez. The killings were ordered over a perceived betrayal, showing just how far the gang is willing to go for revenge and power. Law enforcement has tried to dismantle Bario Azteca using RICO charges, sting operations, and federal takedowns. And while dozens of leaders have been arrested and sentenced, the gang continues to evolve, recruiting new members in prisons, spreading into smaller towns, and adapting to law enforcement tactics. They may not have the numbers of larger gangs, but their alliances with powerful cartels make them far more dangerous. In New Mexico, they are viewed not just as gangsters, but as foot soldiers in a narco war. They were born in prison, raised by violence, and fueled by cartel power. In New Mexico, Bario Azteca is more than a gang. It's a silent invasion. Number 3. The Aryan Brotherhood. They call themselves the Brand, a brotherhood forged in hatred, violence, and white supremacy. This is the story of the Aryan Brotherhood, one of the most feared and violent prison gangs in America, and their dark presence in New Mexico. The Aryan Brotherhood was born in the California prison system in the 1960s. Originally formed for protection by white inmates, the group quickly transformed into a ruthless criminal empire operating under the banner of racial superiority. Their motto? Blood in, blood out. To join, you must spill blood. To leave, you usually die trying. Though the Aryan Brotherhood's roots lie in California and the federal system, its reach has extended across state lines, including into the prison yards of New Mexico. Here, the Aryan Brotherhood has built a dangerous footprint. In a state where Hispanic and Native American gangs dominate, the Aryan Brotherhood has carved out power through violence, intimidation, and organization. They don't have the numbers, but they have the fear factor. Inside New Mexico's correctional facilities, Aryan Brotherhood members operate like a militant cell. They're involved in drug trafficking, extortion, and contract killings. Methamphetamine is their primary currency, and they use it to buy loyalty, fund operations, and manipulate weaker inmates. Anyone who stands in their way, particularly black inmates, Hispanic gangs, and informants. These symbols mark not just membership, but commitment to a violent code of racial dominance. Even inside New Mexico's prisons, these markings strike fear. In recent years, federal and state authorities have cracked down on Aryan Brotherhood activity in New Mexico. Members have been indicted under RICO statutes for murder conspiracies, racketeering, and drug distribution rings. Yet, despite these efforts, the gang remains resilient, secretive, and lethal. Many Aryan Brotherhood members spend years in solitary confinement, yet even from behind steel doors, they continue to orchestrate hits and run criminal enterprises using coded messages and trusted messengers. Outside prison, AB-affiliated white supremacist gangs are spreading. In rural towns and urban neighborhoods across New Mexico, former inmates and associates continue the work of the brand, pushing drugs, recruiting youth, and fueling racial hatred. In the shadows of New Mexico's prisons, where race divides and violence rules, the Aryan Brotherhood remains a symbol of power, fear, and unforgiving loyalty. Number 2. The Sureños. They wear blue, they ride under the number 13, and their loyalty belongs to one of the most feared prison gangs in America, the Mexican Mafia. This is the story of the Sureños in New Mexico, a violent network born in California, now deeply rooted in the streets and prisons of the land of enchantment. The term Sureño means Southerner in Spanish. Originally formed in Southern California during the 1960s, the Sureños were created by local gangs who pledged allegiance to La M, the Mexican Mafia. Over the decades, the Sureño 13 identity spread like wildfire, crossing state lines and embedding itself in cities, neighborhoods, and prison systems across the Southwest. And New Mexico was no exception. Unlike traditional prison gangs with a centralized leadership, the Sureños function more like a network, a coalition of affiliated gangs who follow the same rules, symbols, and loyalty to La M. In New Mexico, this decentralized power has made them harder to dismantle and even harder to control. Inside New Mexico's prisons, the Sureños are feared. They enforce their code with violence, using brutal tactics to dominate drug distribution, control contraband, and intimidate both inmates and correction staff. Their loyalty to the Mexican Mafia means that every command from the top is treated like law. Failure to obey? That can mean a death sentence. Sureño 13 members are identified by tattoos of the number 13, representing the letter M, the 13th letter of the alphabet. It's a symbol of allegiance, but also a brand of violence. They are known for carrying out attacks on rival gangs, most notably the Norteños, but also clashing with local prison gangs like the Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico. But the Sureños aren't confined to prison. On the streets of New Mexico, they're a growing force. In cities like Albuquerque, Española, and Las Cruces, Sureño sets are involved in drug trafficking, robberies, assaults, and retaliation killings. Their street-level violence often spills into the community, with turf wars leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. Law enforcement in New Mexico has spent years trying to disrupt the Sureños' operations. But their decentralized structure, combined with their loyalty to a larger criminal empire, makes them uniquely dangerous. They don't just answer to local leaders, they answer to La M, which means their orders can come from hundreds of miles away and still be carried out with deadly precision. They are soldiers of the South bound by blood, loyalty, and fear. In the prisons and streets of New Mexico, the Sureños are not just a gang, they're a growing empire. Number 1. The Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico. In the heart of the American Southwest lies one of the most dangerous and secretive prison gangs you've probably never heard of. This is the story of the Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico, the prison gang that controls fear, silence, and death behind New Mexico's prison walls. Formed in the late 1980s, the Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico, known as SNM, rose from the ashes of the infamous 1980 New Mexico State Penitentiary riot, one of the bloodiest prison uprisings in U.S. history. The chaos exposed deep corruption, overcrowding, and the absence of order. In the void that followed, SNM was born, originally created to protect Hispanic inmates and bring unity within the chaos of prison life. SNM quickly evolved into a violent criminal enterprise. What started as survival became domination. The gang operates like a military unit, with a strict hierarchy, coded communication, and an iron grip over its members. Orders flow from the top. Disobedience is met with swift and often fatal consequences. From within their cells, SNM leaders have directed assaults, drug trafficking operations, extortion rackets, and even contract killings, both behind bars and on the streets of New Mexico. One of the most chilling aspects of SNM is its reach. Authorities have uncovered murder plots targeting rival gang members, informants, and even corrections officers. In 2016, federal prosecutors charged over 30 members of the Sindicato with crimes including murder, assault, and drug trafficking as part of a sweeping RICO indictment. Their goal? To dismantle what they called a criminal organization running a shadow government within the prison system. Members of SNM are fiercely loyal, bonded by blood, oaths, and violence. Leaving the gang is almost impossible. Those who try often end up dead. Their rules are simple: obey or be eliminated. But the influence of SNM doesn't stop at the prison gate. Many of its members are released back into society, continuing their criminal activities, expanding their reach into neighborhoods, drug networks, and street gangs throughout New Mexico. Today, SNM remains one of the most dangerous gangs in New Mexico. They don't seek fame. They don't broadcast their name, but their power is real, and it is deadly. In the world of concrete and steel, where loyalty means survival and silence means power. The Sindicato de Nuevo Mexico reigns in the shadows,